keyword ranking strategies are you currently using? The entire goal for ranking is how many orders can we possibly get through that one specific search term. Now, I know there's a lot of talk in our space around like, oh, target like long tail search variations of the keyword and all that stuff. That does help. It's not going to have the most impact. So the most impact for any ranking keyword is going to be getting orders specifically through that search, getting a lot of orders. So we don't just want one, we want a lot. And also making sure that our click-through rate and our conversion rate are really high on those key terms. So I'll be honest with you, the biggest impact on ranking you can have is really by picking the right keywords. So if your question was, how do I figure out what keywords do I rank on? I would say like look for things that you can afford to spend a lot, i.e. you're not losing money, meaning ACoS isn't like so crazy high that you can't afford it. You want to look for things that you have really good conversion rates. Bonus points if you have good click-through rates here, but I would go for conversion rates over click-through rates. And then you just want to like put money towards that. Now, if you say, how do I rank on this specific keyword, then that question is a little bit different. And I'm just going to tell you like push volume. Now, what I recognize is that me saying, hey, push volume through a one specific search might mean that that's not super profitable. So that's where I'm saying like the real trick is going to lie in the actual targets that you select to rank on. Other things, some pro tips and some pro hacks are more advanced but can be helpful here, is if you have a specific search where it's like crazy expensive and you just don't really have the budget for it. Again, that goes back to keyword selection. Make sure you're selecting keywords where you can afford to spend that budget on it. But if we're on a specific keyword, you want to make sure that you're showing high enough in search that you can really get those good conversions and get those eyeballs on the product. But maybe you can't afford a ton of clicks because there's a lot of clicks and they're really expensive. And use the budget as sort of a lever to cap or meter how much money you are spending for that ranking play. Now, how effective that is going to be how many orders your market is making, and that's relative. So when I talk about trying to get a large amount of orders, it's relative to the other competition that is on that particular search page. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Junglr. This is the time and the place for you to get answers to your most pressing Amazon advertising questions. For those of you, if this is your first time joining in, I want to give you a big welcome and just going to give you an overview of what we do here. So this is called Ask Junglr because I am the co-founder of an Amazon advertising agency called Junglr, hence the name. And we focus on running effective and efficient Amazon advertising for brands looking to grow on the platform, who are looking for a more business-centric ad strategy. What do I mean by business-centric ad strategy? I just got off filming today on a podcast with my good friend Michael Erkison-Fashine from Ad Badger, and we were talking about all of the things that are outside advertising that touch advertising performance. Things like inventory, things like buy box percentages, catalogs, variations being split is what I mean by catalogs, as well as things like return rates actually that eat into margins that need to be factored into advertising. So a good ad strategy is going to take all of your business factors and then help you grow in a way that is sustainable. And so that's sort of the strategies that we focus in on here. So the way this works is you all can feel free to drop your Amazon advertising questions into the chat. I will pull them up and we will start to get into it. Again, the more business context you can give, the better. Things like what category it's in, how, like, if what the budgets are, what the margins are, again, as much as you feel comfortable, because we manage ads across very large catalogs as well. That's one of our specialties, is like large growing brands that have immense amounts of complexity in terms of maybe you have multiple brands underneath your like single account, and you need to be able to say like, hey, like we're onboarding a brand right now. They have one area of their catalog that's like a very defined brand. They're launching a new brand. Their older brand, like they have insane penetration in terms of market share. Like we don't really need to invest in advertising. We need to run much leaner, just eke out all the profits. And then for the new brand, that's where we're really investing, and that's where the growth's going to come from, right? But how do you dive into an account? How do you run like multiple strategies across different areas of the account? How do you look at, how do you evaluate that? All those good things. That's the sort of complexity that we deal with. So the more, again, context that you can give me on kind of what it is that you're running up against, I'll be able to give you much more insights. Awesome. So it looks like we already have a couple questions in the chat, which is fantastic. Again, if you're joining in, listening, drop your Amazon ad questions into the chat and I will pull them up. And by the way, if this is valuable for you, or if you can see or hear me in terms of audio, drop a comment or drop a like, and that will be super helpful to kind of like let me know how we're doing. So the first question is, hey, can you give me some strategies for thin profit margin products? Thanks, more power to your channel. First off, I really appreciate the kind words. And then yes, I will say thin profit margin products are difficult. I'm not saying it's not doable, but it can be more difficult. And so let's just kind of pull up this sheet that I've put out once or twice. I don't even think I have an email capture along with this, but so really the factors that you have to think of when it comes to sort of net profits is, even if you have a decent margin, which this honestly would be a pretty low, like before ads margins on Amazon, like 28%. I'm entering just completely BS numbers in here, just to kind of make this a little bit like worse in terms of margin. So let's say you have something that's like 20% margin, but like the hardest thing is actually when it's a low price, because like, let's say that we had a product price of $100. Well, 21% of $100 is a lot more than say like the lower price item. So my guess is that's where the question's coming from. Now, when it comes to figuring out what to do, the other thing that there's a couple things that you can focus on that I highly recommend you focus on. One is the product's conversion rate. Now, you can get better ad conversion rate if you do better ads targeting, but a main one here is going to be things like main images, listing. Obviously, if $15 is competitive in your space or not, you want to factor that in. So you'll see right here the margins, and then this is the net profit. And right here, this is our break even total A cost. So obviously break even total A cost is going to be whatever the margins are. So if this is really low, I would need, in this case, if I want to make at least obviously we're not going to be able to make a 20% margin because it only leaves us like a total A cost of 1%. So let's say we're okay, which I would not be happy with the 5% margins on Amazon, but I could get like a target total A cost. If I need to have at least a 10% margin, that means I have to hit an 11% target total A cost. So this is where you can see like this kind of gets a little bit more difficult. Now, the other thing that you'll see here is what we call like the break-even CPC. So if this is the product conversion rate of like 10%, I need 10 clicks on average. And if I only to break even am allowed to spend $3, well, then my break-even CPC is 32 cents. Now, there's very few far between categories right now that allow me to have a 32-cent CPC. Now, so that's the one lever that you can pull on, is definitely the conversion rates. Listing, product price, optimizing your offer is going to be the biggest lever when it comes to pulling that. Now, what is the other lever that you can pull? That's something that we like to call the ad sale percentage, which is the percentage of the total sales that is coming from advertising. So in this case, if we had a profit goal of 10% and we had what we call like an ad sale percentage, meaning 70% of the total sales is coming from advertising, my target total A cost is going to be 11.5%. That's not going to change. But what is going to change is the target spend per sale. So my target CPC is even lower than this 32 cents because again, this is my break even. So I'm looking at a 25-cent CPC. Let's say we had 50% of our total sales coming from advertising. Now I can spend up to 35 cents because there's about 50% portion of the product sales that I'm going to make this pure 21% margin on, and then the other 50% of the products I'm going to pay to push. So that's really the lever that you have to pull when it comes to advertising, is getting better and tighter with your targeting, meaning focusing on things that have higher conversion rates, and then also making sure that your advertising is going to allow you to grow your market share. Where I see brands just kind of continuously spinning their wheels is when you are focused on a lot of broad match, a lot of auto campaigns. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Those can bring you some really low cost clicks. But if you're not focused at all on any sort of ranking campaigns, that's really where you're going to see you just constantly, you can't bring your total A cost down. So I would say in these brands, again, going back to strategies when it focuses on products within margins, I would say one, make sure you're being really intentional with your targeting. The more specific you can get to that exact shopper search for the product. The example I always give is like, say, baby blankets. If you look at baby blankets on Amazon, and I'm going to do that right now because I really, really love this illustration. I think it's very helpful to have visuals here. So if I look at baby blankets, let me pull up this and let's just look at it together. Hide that. So if I'm looking at baby blankets here, notice how varied. Notice that there's some monogram blankets. I have some quilted blankets. There's more like fuzzy blankets. There's swaddle blankets. Now these are all advertising, but see how varied the search is. And like, look at these. These aren't even like these are technically swaddle blankets, but these are not like a blanket per se. It's like a swaddle bundle, right? Look how varied this search is. And so a shopper who's looking for, say, a swaddle blanket or a easy swaddle blanket, they might say, oh, like actually I'm looking for this. So oftentimes what happens in these searches is they'll go back up to the search bar and they'll say, oh, actually I was looking for a baby blanket for a boy. I'm getting served up a lot more girl products, and so I need to get a little bit more specific to this, and then they'll say, okay, so now we have more blues, more boy looking products. And so that's sort of what you're looking to do. So what we have found is that the more specific you can get to the shopper search, typically speaking, not always, the higher your advertising conversion rate. Pro tip here is a good way to check your ad conversion rates just on averages, again, across the entire account, is we like to see ad conversion rates that are at the very least equal to or higher than our unit session percentage, which is the total conversion rate, which again would combine organic as well as advertising. We like to see a higher ad conversion rate, again, or at the very least like equal or within, half a point or so. That tells you if you're doing, like, if you've done really well on targeting. Now, where this may change is, like, let's say you're going upper funnel. Let's say you have like complete market penetration and you're like, okay, I want to look at like adjacent categories or like more broader keywords. In that case, I would be more expected to see a lower ad conversion rate than the unit session percentage. But the problem is a lot of times brands will go after those lower converting keywords because typically speaking, they do have much higher conversion rates. Not higher conversion rates. They tend to have lower conversion rates. They tend to have much higher search volume on them. And so a lot of times brands will earmark that. We actually just got asked to put together a strategy for a brand that we're onboarding that have some new products. And so what we did is we went and looked at it. It's a supplement category. We're like, hey, look, I know that this is the specific type of supplement it is, but really we want to go after this subsection of the market that appeals specifically to women, and it's this variation, which is a little bit of a niche variation of like the overall supplement itself. It's a niche way to like, you know, intake the supplement, but like we really feel like we have a much better chance of getting, you know, starting to gain some traction on market share, because again, we're still, you know, there's still listing optimizations that are being done. We're still getting reviews in for this product, and so like we really want to go after this subsection of the market again, so we can have higher conversion rates, so you can have better market penetration, better search, better sales velocity, and then that should then help us gain market share, which again will make those economics look better. Because when it comes to really growing and balancing, the one thing that you can do actually when it comes to looking at your profitability is if you can actually multiply your ad sale percentage, which is again the percentage of your total sales from advertising, multiply that times your ACoS, and that equals your total ACoS. So if I have to have a much higher ACoS because that's the CPCs that I need, well, if I actually have a lower ad sale percentage, and let's make this, honestly, 45% is probably about low. Let's say this is 40%. So you could play around with this. So, okay, if I can get to ACoS of 40%, but I have an ad sale percentage, then that puts me at 18. If my overall goal for my total ACoS is 15, that means I either need a 33% target ACoS, or I need to have about only 37.5% of my total sales coming from advertising. So it's really balancing these like market share, and you know, which again, ad sale percentage is like a zoomed out way to look at market share, and then also balancing it with what can I achieve in terms of ACoS, because in a lot of ways your ACoS is determined by how your conversion rate is on the product. You know, higher conversion rate, lower ACoS, lower conversion rate, higher ACoS, or what the cost per clicks are. And cost per clicks are really determined by what you can achieve, but then also what your competitors are paying as well. Competitors definitely drive up cost per click. So I know that was a little bit longer winded, but hopefully that was helpful. Looks like we got some more questions in the chat on margins, so keep them coming. Also some questions around, is it possible to get a link to this spreadsheet? So I'm going to drop that link in the chat actually. Again, I should have an email capture somewhere on this, but that's fine. I'll give it away for free, no email. If you're listening in on LinkedIn though, and you want access to that, you will have to message me, because for some reason, when I drop something in comments, it doesn't come up on LinkedIn, unfortunately. All right, our second question is, in our auto campaigns, you have two products, a single pack and a multi-pack. We're getting clicks on both. However, when orders come in, we notice that the purchases are not for the exact product we're advertising. And so the orders are for a different product in our catalog priced at $70, which we're not actively advertising. Could you clarify how this cross-product attribution happens and how we should interpret these results? This is a great question, and also one, so it sounds like you're saying that these are completely different in the catalog as well. This often happens if you have a parent-child variation. That's a little bit more normal. This is what Amazon calls brand halo sales. So this happens when one of your products that is advertising originates a click, and then they go on to purchase that product or another variation that's on that parent ASIN, or in your case, it sounds like they're purchasing another product in your catalog. I think what you have to determine is, it's more from a business perspective, is this okay? Case in point, okay? We have a client that they have a higher priced product. It has a low conversion rate. And also, to throw another wrench in the works, part of their go-to-market strategy is to allow resellers to sell the products on Amazon. So actually our buy box is pretty low. Okay. So that's the factors. When looking at our total ACoS, it looks horrible. Absolutely horrible. Above 100%. which you would think of, how is it possible to get a total ACoS of above 100%? Isn't the highest that you could have, like, 100%? Well, the crazy thing is that our ACoS is actually about 30%, which is pretty good for this product. How is it possible? Like, unless sales are happening outside of the catalog or outside of this product, there is no way that this product could have a higher total ACoS than ACoS. So then what's going on? Well, what's going on is that we are getting sales that are registered, again, because this product is underneath like the catalog in this account. We're getting sales that are attributed to other sellers. Now, in this case, that's actually ideal. That's part of this brand's strategy. They're okay with supporting their resellers through ad dollars. We've had multiple conversations with them. So in any other account, we said this is not working. We need to pull back. In this particular account, we're actually pushing forward into this, which again, for some might seem counterintuitive. It's a larger brand. They have brand recognition. They're okay with doing it this way, right? But that's kind of where that dynamic comes into play. So there's two ways that you can look in and evaluate this. One, again, as a business perspective, are you okay with saying, hey, as long as I'm making a sale somewhere else in my catalog or one of the other variations, that's okay with me? How you can help track this is also by having benchmarks and goals for total sales and total ACoS at an account level. So we can say, okay, we're going to have mixed flow through of spend and sales throughout the catalog, but as long as I'm profitable on the overall account, I'm okay with a little bit interesting dynamics throughout the catalog, right? Or another way is if you're evaluating it on a listing or a parent ASIN level, you can say, okay, so I can't tell you how many times I've seen this where it's like the best seller when looking at, if you have like, say, 5 different child variations under a parent, they might say like, oh my gosh, total ACoS is fantastic for my second best seller, but it's really bad for my best seller. So can we take the spend from the best seller and put it on the next best seller? Because again, I want to have better, profit economics across each SKU, which you can do. But the only problem is what happens if the ad conversion rate is much higher on that top product and then your ad conversion rate is lower on the other products? You're actually going to hurt your advertising performance. So there's like pros and cons to doing that, right? So what I would want to evaluate is, am I okay with the metrics? Again, metrics being total sales growth, profitability, total ACoS on an account level. Okay, I'm fine with that. Am I okay with total ACoS, profitability, total sales on an individual parent ASIN level, right? That's how we typically manage it, because what we have found is that if you go too micro in your evaluations, oftentimes you end up making decisions that hurt advertising performance overall. So I'm trying to think, clarify the cross product attribution. Yeah. And so I would say like there are some brands where they might say like, hey, we don't want cross product attribution. We don't feel like that's not how we want to evaluate it. And in that case, what you can do is you would have to go in and like sort of manually allocate budgets or determine where you needed to turn things off, turn things down. But again, what we found is that can hurt the advertising performance. So as long as you're evaluating the overall profitability and sales growth, again, at an account and a listing level, and all of those numbers are directionally correct, I would be okay with this happening. And then the good news is that in terms of like, how do you optimize for this, it's quite easy, because if a sale is made through another variation in with that product, it's still going to be attributed back to that click, so your ACoS is going to look really good. So you can still actually optimize for ACoS performance even if this is happening. So you don't really have to overthink it. I don't think I would overthink it. I think what I would do is just just make sure that you're looking at, again, overall profitability performance at the account as well as product level. Yep. They're asking if there was a link to the sheets. Yeah, so I dropped it in the chat. Let me know if you got that link. Hopefully you did. By the way, if this is helpful, feel free to give a thumbs up or ask your own Amazon advertising question. Again, we're a ways into the broadcast, so we take questions as they come. If you wait too long to ask a question, you may or may not get it answered because I do have a hard stop today. So make sure if you have an Amazon advertising question, drop it in the chat. If I have a resource, if I have a spreadsheet, if I have a screen share, I will definitely pull those up and we will get you your answers. So the other question is, what about margin? What is noticed instantly is that there are some $20 and there are some almost $100. Yes. So when it comes to the margins is typically speaking, not always, but oftentimes you have to think about it two ways, in percentages and dollars. So an example would be like, let's say you had a product that was only $10, but you had 50% margins. That means I have $5 I can spend. So $5 to make my profit and $5 to be able to spend on advertising or whatever marketing I have to do for that product. Let's say you had a product that was $100 and I have 20% margins. Now you would want higher than 20% margins, but I technically have, so 20% margins are lower, but now I have $20 that I can make up my profit and I can spend on advertising, which is technically more that I can invest than my $10 product. So there's these two things at play. And then the other thing is, again, what we have typically found is that especially when the product, if it is higher priced than the market, meaning it's the more premium offer, now those products can do well. I have found that premium products do well if two things happen. One, if you have a really strong brand. So there are some brands that we advertise. They're actually like some clothing products and they're higher priced. However, they have an extremely strong brand behind them, so they can command that price point. They still, honestly, the conversion rates are quite low, but they can make, a decent amount of sales. The other thing that you can do if you have a higher price point, if you don't have a strong brand behind you, you absolutely must be head and shoulders above the competitors in terms of quality, or it has to have something that justifies that increase in price. It can't just be a little bit better. Like if you're going to be $5, $10 over your competitors or a lot of the people in the market, you can't just have like a little bit more durable in the product. Unless that's something like just being a little bit more durable makes the product way more valuable. But again, you have to be head and shoulders above the competitors if you really want to have a strong sales velocity and again, be able to command those prices. So, other than that, like typically speaking, we found that higher price items, just because people, especially anything that's like under $50 is a pretty solid, like, oh yeah, let me just order it. So it's kind of like it can be an impulse purchase. And once you're getting over $50, it's less of an impulse purchase. But once you're getting over $100, a couple $100, typically those are purchases that people think a little bit longer about, which means they're clicking around more, which means the conversion rates are lower. So again, in that same example, let's say we have that $20 that we can spend. But if you think about it, let's say our conversion rate is, I'm going to have to do the math. Let's see. 1 divided by 0.02%. That's going to give us, let's say we had a conversion rate of 2%. That takes us 50 clicks. So then we would have that 20 divided by 50. So our break even CPC is still 40 cents. But let's say we had that $5 and then we had a 10% conversion rate, and so our break even CPC is 50 cents, right? So those two things are like, what is the percentage, but then what is the profit dollars, and then what is the conversion rate, and then that kind of helps you figure out like how much you can invest in a product. So there's a lot that goes into it. So the question is, I want to know, our listing is not variations, all products are listed single. Yeah, so I would say that does definitely happen. It's called the brand halo effect. I'm not sure if you're looking at sponsored product ads or sponsored brand ads. That would play into it. The one thing that you do need to be very careful of in sponsored brand ads is that sponsored product ads and sponsored display ads are what's called retail aware, which means if you don't own the buy box, then those ads will shut off. If you are running a sponsored brand ad to, say, a store page, I believe if you're running direct to the listing, I'm going to have to double check on that. I'm trying to remember if they're retail aware, if it's a sponsor brands video directly to a listing. But I do know that if it's a like store spotlight ad or you're running to a sub page or a store page, if somebody else owns the buy box and then there's a click through, that sale can be attributed back to your ads, even though technically that sale was not made in your account. How you'll catch this is that the total A cost will actually look horrible because, again, the business reports are not going to report a sale that you didn't actually make through your account, but the advertising will attribute, again, a sale that happens underneath that brand back to that click of advertising. And again, those are some of the sponsored brand ads are not retail aware, which means, again, it's not like your ads are going to stop if you lose buy box. So do take that into account. So I'm not sure. Okay, you're saying like this is an SP auto campaign. In that case, yes, SP auto campaigns. This can happen in sponsored product ads. The way that you can look at it is there's two reports. There's a sponsored ad, I believe it's called the purchase product report. That one can be really valuable because you can actually look at which products. I think it's a purchase product report. There's one where it starts with an A. I'm gonna have to grab an account and like look at the actual report term. Advertised product report. That's what I'm looking for. Those two reports will tell you like what's being advertised, but then also which product was purchased. You can actually run pivot tables. I really like doing this, especially if you combine the ASINs with the parent ASINs. I like to look at parentage here as well. You can run pivot tables to see, okay, what are sort of the paths to purchase people are taking, like which items are they clicking on, which items are they purchasing ultimately, and then you can kind of get an idea of like flow through sales for your account. Marina saying, thank you. I meant the whole click cost calculation and Baby Lace's example where the price varies drastically. Yes, that is a good call out. So we could bring this up again and we could it sounds like a lot of people want to talk margins now and like how you can evaluate these things. Yes, so the prices vary differently, right? You're seeing $88, $96, $49. Okay, so here is the evaluations. Let me just like pull up a spreadsheet. Let's see if I can do math. Can we do math on the fly, right? Okay, so let's say we have, let's see. All right, let's go through here. All right, I'm gonna do like we have the product price, and then we have product before ads margins. Then we have our, I'm just going to call it ad conversion rate. And we're going to have our CPC. Okay. So, and I'm just going to look at, I guess we can add in ad sale percentage here as well. Let me see if I want to add in. So ad sale percentage, and then let's look at ACOS and tacos. All right. see if we can do math. So let's say we have various prices, right? What was our prices we had? There was like an $88, there was like $89, one was $54. So you have that to take into account. Let's just assume, just for argument, and let me zoom in. Can you guys even see that? It looks like you guys can't see it very well. Let's just assume, for argument's sake, that all of these have a 45% margin on them, okay? Just so we can, like, apples to apples, it's not going to be exactly correct, but we can kind of get there, right? And let's say, for argument's sake, again, you're going to have varying CPCs, but let's just say that all of these are $1 CPC on these, okay? Apples to apples. But the one thing that is going to change, or a couple things that are going to change this, is, again, the ad conversion rate is a huge one. And then the other one that might change it is the ad sale percentage. So this is the percentage of the total sales that comes from advertising, and ad conversion rate is a huge one because this determines velocity, okay? So let's say that our ad conversion rate on this one, because it has a higher price point, let's say we have a 10% conversion rate on this one, but let's say 10, let's say that this one had an 8% conversion rate, and then let's say that this one, because it's it's still technically a higher price for this category, but let's assume that this was good, so then we have like a 20% conversion rate, which is double, okay? Now, all right, let me do this. Okay, so if our before ads profit margin is 45%, then this is going to be this times our profit margin. So here we have $39, here we have $40, and here we only have $24. Again, same profit margins, but we're looking at before ads profit dollars. And I'm getting a lot of questions on margins and stuff. So again, I'm feeling like this could be valuable, but please, if anyone has any other questions, or if this is valuable, give it a thumbs up. And I can send this to people. Or again, we're doing this on the fly, people. All right, so this is our before ads profit margins, right? And this is our CPC, and this is our ad conversion rate. So what is the amount of, I would say, cost per ads order? What is the cost per ads order? So that's going to be 1 divided by the ad conversion rate. So this gives us how many clicks on average it takes to make a sale, multiplied times our average CPC. So for every single order, it takes, look at this. This is crazy. This is why ad conversion rate is so freaking important, because even though this one has a lower product price and we have a lower before ads profit dollars, because the price gives me a lower conversion rate, even though my CPC is exactly the same, I actually have a way lower cost per ads order than this guy right here, because his conversion rate is lower, even though the price is higher, and look how much higher. So then our, I would say dollar profit after ads sale equals cost per order. What would it be? Multiplied by this. No, we don't want to do that. This is our profits. Okay, that's what we're going to do it. Profit. So we're going to make $29, but then we're still going to make $19, right? So our cost per ads order is this, but we actually have lower profits by a little bit. But let's say that because we have higher conversion rates here, we can rank a lot higher. That's pretty typical. Versus this one, they probably just can't get enough sales velocity on a main keyword that they can't rank any higher. So let's look at this. All right. Let's look at our ACoS, which is going to be our spend divided by our average product price. So this would be our ACOS here. So again, you can see ACOS is actually lower here, which is interesting. But what about the total ACOS? Okay. Which is it spend? Yeah, because that would be spend divided by, okay, that's right. So let's say our ad sale percentage for this one, because we just can't gain any traction, is 70%. 70% of our sales are coming from advertising. This one is 80%, but this one we've been able to get up to 55% of our sales. So, about 45% of our sales are organic, because total ACOS is our ad sale percentage multiplied by our ACOS. Then we have an 8% total ACOS. But actually, overall, even though our maybe our cost per ads order, profit per sale is lower, we actually have a lower total ACOS, and maybe we're more profitable overall. So that's how price point really has price point, but more importantly, price point and ad conversion rate. Ad conversion rate and CPCs are the two things that you really need to focus in on controlling as much as you possibly can. You focus in on controlling your ad conversion rate by what your targeting is. How are you adding negatives? Are you making sure that if you're pushing on something to rank, it is higher conversion rate for you? Where are you investing your ad dollars? How do you make sure that it is really focused in on the things that are converting the best for your product? And then in terms of CPCs, it's looking at things like, how are you doing bid adjustments? How are you getting rid of things again with negatives to clear out ads waste? Are you focusing on your placement percentages? Are you over indexing on placement percentages and hyper focusing in on that? And so it's really a game of, that's how ad optimization really works. It's focusing in on those things, controlling CPCs, and ideally maximizing ad conversion rate. Between those two things, again, paying attention to all the other performance metrics, again, market share, total ACOS, those are your sort of business metrics that you're focused on. So it's making sure things are moving in the right direction. Hopefully that was valuable. I don't know if it is. Leave a comment. Any further follow-up questions, anything else that we should dive into when it comes to profit margins and how those play into advertising, what you should be focused in on advertising. We can absolutely dive into those things as well. Quick call out for those of you who may be interested in getting into other is anyone exploring sponsored products video ads these days? I would love to know if anyone's seeing success in sponsored products video, or potentially on using anyone's servicing or seeing more Rufus ads show up in accounts. That's something that we've been seeing a little bit more of, or sponsored products video ads or sponsored brand ads as well. There have been some interesting developments in terms of good question. So best practices to decrease the total ACOS. Two things. One is controlling ACOS. Two is making sure that you have a higher percentage of your total sales that are coming from your organic and not advertising. So this is the sort of growth balance equation that I shared earlier. So your total ACOS is your ACOS multiplied by your ad sale percentage. So there's two things that you can do. One of them, ACOS, is ad efficiency. So ad efficiency, the main thing is increasing conversion rates, controlling your cost per clicks. Ad sale percentage is your market share. What percentage of your total sales are coming from market share? So when we're evaluating these things, what we like to do is look at it on a parent ASIN level and say, okay, which products do we have a high ad sale percentage? Now, quote, high for us these days, I'm looking to minimum, if possible, hit about 50% of total sales coming from advertising is probably about average. Now, if you have a very strong brand, meaning you have a good retail presence or you're selling a lot to your D2C site and you have a lot of branded search, you probably will be closer to like 40-60, maybe 30-70, but again, only if you have a very strong brand. If you are an Amazon-centric brand, that is your main sales channel, and you don't have a lot of branded search to, again, get that sort of organic sales off of, then I would expect more of like a 50-50, sometimes a 60-40, meaning 60% of total sales coming from advertising, right? So then our question is, all right, if we are running at about a 50%, and that's kind of where we're going to be, again, the total ACoS is 20%, then where do we need to be able to get the ACoS to hit the total ACoS that we need, right? So there's two things I can do. I can increase the amount of sales that are coming from organic, which is ranking, focusing on ranking, or I can decrease the ACoS. So to decrease ACoS, I need to do two things. One, focus in on ad conversion rate. Where am I converting higher? And then two, I need to control my cost per click. So an example here would be for an ACoS target. Like, let's say this was our scenario and we had to get down to, let's say, we got to drop the ACoS by about 30, 10 points? Because where was it? Like at 40, I think. Yeah. So you're going to drop ACoS by 10 points. All right. Now we got to go into here and say, all right, if my ACoS, I'm going to have to figure out where I need to put these numbers to make it. Okay, so if my ACoS was 20%, right? No. What the heck am I doing? All right, we're at 33%. Let's say like this was my metrics and I was at 33% and I got to get to 30. Then my question is, what kind of conversion rate or what kind of CPC do I need? So I either need to increase my conversion rate by 1.6 points. So I need to get from a 15 to a 16, or I need to drop my average CPC by 10 cents. So again, that's the game. So you do this. Honestly, listing optimization, huge, 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 huge. Invest in listing optimization. It is like by far, like it will make all your other metrics better. Or, again, but when it comes to like what can you do in terms of your advertising, it's really just going to be focusing in on those, like the traffic that converts best. Other pro tips and things that you could do, you could look at placement percentages. You can focus in on AMC audiences. Where do your best customers show up? Where do they search? Double down on that. Or again, it's cost per click optimization, which is bid optimization. This is the main reason like why bid optimization is the biggest, I would say, in terms of advertising optimizations. Focusing in on having really good bid ops has to be like one of the biggest levers in an advertising account, bar none, hands down. That's why we've spent so much time. We've spent so much time optimizing or just adjusting our internal, like we have an internal bid algorithm that we run. We've been honing and developing it for over 5 years now. And we are putting more and more development behind that system this year. That's one of the major projects that we have. It's already doing really, really well, but we're just getting way, way, way more incremental with it because we've identified that if you get bid optimization wrong, it can destroy an account. Absolutely. We have had accounts that come from other platforms that like they just lumped everything in together. The campaign structure just wasn't great. But one of the main issues there was like the bid optimizations just weren't great. Or an AI where it's gone through and like it's just put targets in there that don't make sense. It's not pushing the targets that need to be pushed. It's not pulling back on things quick enough. And like I have seen like automated systems just slowly over time just absolutely obliterate accounts. And so we have essentially taken all of the best practices. I'm talking about allocating things if it's a ranking campaign or if it's not a ranking campaign. How aggressively do we need to pull back on things that have clicks with no orders, right? If it's a What kind of date ranges do we need to be looking at? Like if you have a high price product and you have a 2% conversion rate, it takes you 50 clicks on average to generate a sale. Well, that's a lot of time to wait. So are there ways where we can make adjustments quicker than that? Or do we have to look at longer date ranges? Like how do we evaluate that? Like all of those things are, we have basically just worked into the algorithm. So instead of somebody having to be like we have absolute experts on our team, but then they're able to leverage just a fantastic system that just allows them to make better decisions a lot quicker. We still have a human element of evaluation that goes into it, but it's really the best of both worlds where you're not, because the other thing that I see from a lot of brands that I talk to is a lot of times because they need that human element, they're still sitting there doing like hours and hours and hours of evaluation. And so what we found is that you really just want to like speed up that evaluation time as much as possible. But you still want, so you get like 99.9% of the way there with a good algorithm, and then you add in the human element, like evaluation piece, just to make sure that everything makes sense and then push it through. And the system is actually really, really fast to run. But it also makes like really freaking good decisions. And then the other thing that we have is we have an evaluation every single week on the account. And then we have like a multi-day process that we go through, and we're checking and evaluating, making sure that everything's going in the right direction. And then anything that we learn through those evaluations, you can feed it back into the bid optimization system, because again, I'm a firm believer that the more specific you can get on bid optimizations, the more you can customize what you're doing to a specific account. Some accounts doing a 5-cent adjustment up is like really, the accounts are very volatile. The categories have really, really high CPCs. Things can go out of control really quickly. But in other accounts, only making like small adjustments is just not going to be enough. Things bleed out way too quickly. So like, how do you have a system? And that's really what we have solved, is how do you have a system that is not only making incredible decisions, but also has the ability to be customized to the specific account, to the specific category, to the specific needs, and just frankly, like where the account is at. Like, are you on a profitability kick, ideally? Are you looking for like steady profitable growth? Do you need aggressive growth? What does that look like? Where are you trying to aim for as a brand? Again, all those things can be factored into the system settings, so we can make sure that things are getting adjusted to push accounts into the right direction, instead of just having like a one-size-fits-all solution where all you put is an ACoS target and then the thing just runs, and you don't end up getting really fantastic results with that. I know that was long-winded, but hopefully that gave you guys some good insights on optimizations, or how you can approach controlling CPCs in your account. With that, if anyone wants to squeak in a very last-minute question, I will allow it, and we'll get one more question in. If not, I am going to call it here. And wish you guys all the very most amazing Thursday. And with that, I will, hold on. I'm going to call it here. So I will say I look forward to seeing everyone same time, same place next week. Bring your Amazon advertising questions. We'll give you the best answers. Again, we'll do screen shares. We can go through data live. And I wish you all the most success throughout this week, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Thanks, guys. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.